Okay, good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Hands up if you can hear me. Good, you're all awake. That's helpful. My name is Matt. I'm part of the evening service team. It is really good to be with you tonight. We're doing things a little bit differently, so thanks for bearing with us as we mix things up. I know it's a bit of a shock in church when something changes, I know, but we'll be fine. Hang in there. We are continuing our series, new January series called Livin On A Prayer. And what we wanted to do, it was Claire Hamilton's idea, so you can blame her, was it's the beginning of a year. Let's concentrate on one of the firm foundations that we have as part of the Christian faith, our ability to communicate with God. Let's explore some of the famous prayers and the famous prayers that we see in the Bible. How can we learn from that? How can we adapt that into our own life and model that? And how can that help us grow in faith and grow in our relationship with God? And so last week, I started by talking about this idea of rejoicing. So how can we use prayer as a way to rejoice, even when things aren't easy, but when they are going great? How do we give thanks, and what are the benefits of rejoicing through prayer? And you'll remember maybe, or you might have forgotten, and that would be fine, that I referred to Psalm number 13, and how that was an example of both prayer of rejoicing and of rage. And David was able to balance both of these things in a single prayer. And so I said, and I promised, this week we're going to handle the other side of that. How do we deal with our rage, our sadness, our anger, and our doubt in prayer? Are we able to do that? How can we do it? Now, we just got back from Florida not that long ago. We had a wonderful time visiting Maddie's family, and we had a great experience. It was really restful, and it was lovely to be there for Christmas, Maddie's birthday on the 27th, and for New Year. It was great to be there. Now, we went and we packed for what I would describe as a moderate or tropical holiday, and so I packed mostly warm weather stuff, so lots of shorts, just one hoodie, one pair of jeans, one jacket, everything else, summer, so t-shirts, swim shorts, the whole lot, flip-flops. I was ready, I was so ready. Been to the States a couple times before in their version of winter, and I am loving it. I distinctly remember telling Claire Hamilton that I have mocked Americans when they say that it is cold, when it's 15 degrees, and I'm there in my summer gear, they're there with like 3 pairs of socks, 2 hoodies, the whole shebang. So I was ready for this winter, with all of my summer stuff, and I was like, it's going to be great. As a Brit, I am so ready for some sunshine. I'm really excited. We get packing for a holiday within the holiday, and I need to explain that, which is just that we decided that as much as we love Maddie's family, we wanted a little bit of alone time, so we booked some time away for a couple days. And a cold front was rolling in. Maddie says, Matt, we're packing for this, holiday from a holiday. It's going to be cold. It's going to be cold. What do you mean it's going to be cold? Well, it's going to be like, it might be like 10 degrees. I'm like, that's double digits. That's double digits. It's going to be fine. How long have we lived in this cold country? Double digits. I'll take double digits. That's no problem. It will be fine. Maddie goes, Matt, what if it's cold? It's fine. I'll grin and bear it like a British person. Fine. So I was like, right, great. Here we go. I go off, packed my warm stuff, and out we go. And we get there, and the first day, really warm, and then day 2 of 3, lovely again. Day 3, the cold snap, it comes in. I wake up, open the curtains, bright blue sky, looking over the swimming pool. Nobody's there. Why is there nobody out and about? Open the door. Oh my days, it was so cold, I couldn't explain it. The feeling of like I had gotten so used to the warm weather that all of a sudden the cold, I was not ready for it at all. Maddie's in the corner laughing. I'm like, this is so cold, I can't deal with this. She was like, how's it going, Matt? You grinning and bearing it? I was like, shush, it's going to be fine. So I walk out, and I didn't even bring a hoodie with me, so I'm literally just t-shirts, goosebumps on my goosebumps, not ready for this, like smiling my way through, like it's absolutely fine, it's going to be okay. Get to the swimming pool, that's freezing. I was like, to the hot tub, it was fine. So I spent about 30 minutes in the hot tub. My skin looked ridiculous. I was shrimping up. It was awful. It was just so bad. And got to the end of the trip, and I have never lived down this expression that I would grin and bear it. And I just got the packing horribly wrong. Hands up if you ever packed wrong for a holiday. Anyone? Okay, fine. We're not on it completely on our own, but it's still not great. How often in life, when something difficult comes along, do we do the British thing and we grin and bear it? Especially in a church context where we think, well, flip, all these people are so happy clappy, everyone's having a great time, it's all so positive, Jesus loves us, everything's possible, there's hope everywhere you look. What do I do with my hurt? Fine, I'll grin and bear it. And there's this challenge that we have as Christians, that as we come in and we engage with church, as we engage with our home groups, as we engage with our friends and family, there is a temptation to simply grin and bear it. And I think that this flies in the face of a whole lot of biblical text that is dedicated to this concept of lament. Everyone say lament? Lament. It's a lovely word, and it means this. If my clicker will work, let's see. Oh, it didn't. Nath, can you push me forward one? Would that be all right? Oh, okay, great. I'm just going to test the clicker. Yeah, it's dead. Fine. Okay, so me and Nath are going to be like in sync now. This is going to be great. So the definition of lament: a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. A passionate expression of grief or sorrow. And the Bible is absolutely full of these types of prayers and people who are able to articulate to God, to others, passionate expression of grief or sorrow. These are not people that just grinned and bared it. They actually talked about their pain and their difficulty in prayer. Now, I'm just going to read, and feel free to read with me, Psalm 13 one more time. So I've got to find it in an actual traditional paper-based Bible. So see if you can beat me with your ones on your phones and stuff. Mikey's already done it, flip. Psalm 13. So I'm going to read from that just quickly. And I just want to read these first... let's read the whole thing. It's not that long. Here we go. Psalm 13. O Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever? How long will you look the other way? How long must I struggle with anguish in my soul, with sorrow in my heart every day? How long will my enemy have the upper hand? Turn and answer me, O Lord, my God. Restore the sparkle to my eyes, or I will die. Don't let my enemies gloat, saying, we have defeated him. Don't let them rejoice at my downfall. I trust in your unfailing love. I will rejoice because you have rescued me. I will sing to the Lord because he has been good to me. What a wonderful psalm, and an example in part of how to lament, how to pray and express that difficulty and that pain to a God who wants to listen to us. But you see, there are three things in this prayer that he covers. There is that doubt of God's presence with him in verse 1, so he expresses doubt. In verse 2, there is sadness at his own thoughts, that contemplation, that sense of being alone or letting yourself down, those thoughts that can come to us in the middle of night or the result of a difficult conversation. There is sadness too. And thirdly, there is anger at some external situation, some difficult thing. And so actually, when I talk about lament, when I talk about rage this evening, I want you to hold those three things in mind: doubt, sadness, and anger. As a little side note, a little piece of homework, if you want to read the saddest psalm in the Bible, read Psalm 88. So it's easy to remember. If you want to see the saddest psalm that there is, read Psalm 88. And it's an incredible piece of poetry, and it ends with the line, "Darkness is my closest friend." And it's really unusual because actually the Psalms normally end on a positive note. And it's a classic thing that we do here in church. Okay, cover the tough stuff, but end on a positive note. Make sure there's that positive tone. But even in the Bible, there are these poems of people expressing their sorrow, their rage, their doubt, and even this one that God said, yes, this is going to be in my scriptures, and it ends on a note as sad as, "Darkness is my only friend." But somewhere along the way, we have had it beaten into us that we are not allowed to engage with this stuff in front of our Christian friends and family, in a church context, in a home group. Somewhere along the way, it became inappropriate for us to say, I feel awful, I feel like God is not with me, why is this happening, why me? We feel like we can't express that. Well, what would they say? I couldn't say that. What if someone thinks that I'm losing my faith? That would be awful. I couldn't possibly suggest that. I need to not, give that impression. I couldn't say that. All these people look like they've got it together. I don't want to ruin that. And we've told ourselves somewhere, and we've lost it, that we cannot express our rage. But there are so many places in the Bible where we see people doing this, and they do it really well. One of the most famous examples is Job, and actually from Job chapter 1, there is this explanation, a story of someone who loses everything in terms of relationships, physical harm, assets, and things that they owned. Everything was taken from this man, Job. And he cries out to God. He says, God, why? Why is this happening? And after this outburst against God, It says in Job, you can read it in verses 20 to 22, the scriptures say this: in all of this, and that's really important, in all of this, Job sinned not. So in his expression of anger, in his questioning, in his doubt, and in his sadness, he sinned not. We see the same thing again. So if you read it in Ephesians chapter 4, this is one of the most famous verses. It says this: in your anger, do not sin, do not let the sun go down while you are angry. But you see what it says there? In your anger, do not sin. It doesn't say don't be angry, and I think this is the trouble, and this is the thing I want us all to take away from tonight, is that the Bible does not say that you cannot be angry. The Bible does not say that you cannot be angry. The Bible says in your anger, do not sin. So there is a way to be angry and to not sin. Do you see the difference there? So give me a nod if you're understanding what I'm saying. It's okay to be angry. There is a good way to do it. And as if that wasn't enough evidence, the example that I want to follow most closely tonight, and that I will just briefly make my argument for, is this. Jesus himself is angry and expresses his anger to the point of dropping blood, sweating blood, an extreme medical condition that can occur through extreme anxiety or despair. And he went to the depths, the lowest parts, and experienced this sorrow and communicated it. And so we are given permission to feel angry and to express that towards God through all these examples we see in the Bible, but specifically because of Jesus. Jesus was able to model for us that it is possible to come before God with anxiety, with anxiousness, with anger, and with despair. It says in Matthew chapter 27, verse 46, that Jesus cries out while he is on the cross after everything that has happened to him. An innocent man, completely out of no fault of his own, is crucified, the worst possible death that anyone could ever experience. And what happens when he's on the cross? My God, why have you forsaken me? What Jesus didn't say was, Lord, I know you're with me in this and it's all going to be fine in the end. He didn't say, you have plans to prosper me and plans to make a good future. He didn't say that. He said, my God, why have you forsaken me? He didn't add any other thing. He didn't end it on a positive note. He didn't do that. He said, my God, why? Why have you forsaken me? And if it's okay for Jesus to express this pain, this isolation, this doubt, this sorrow, it's okay for you. If it's okay for Jesus to express that, it's okay for you. And so this is my main takeaway point that I want from us tonight. That experiencing and expressing rage, sadness, and doubt is a vital part of a healthy spirituality. Thanks, Nath. Experiencing and expressing rage, sadness, and doubt is a vital part of a healthy spirituality. And some could even say that we would do well to embrace a theology of atheism. Another word you didn't think I'd say in church, atheism. So what I want to do is explain the idea, next slide, of the Christian atheist. I believe that there is a lot to be learned from the concept of a Christian atheist. And before I get kicked out immediately and I don't even get to finish this talk, this is what I mean. What I am not talking about is an intellectual decision that God does not exist. That's not the type of atheism that I'm talking about. That sort of, I've reflected and sat on it and thought about it and argued about it, and I've decided that there is no God. I'm not talking about an intellectual type of atheism. I am talking about a felt experience of isolation and distance from God. A felt experience, much like what Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me? A felt experience where God is not with you. You cannot seem to see him. You cannot seem to hear him. He feels far away. A felt atheism. And Jesus expresses this on the cross. A felt distance. He experiences that loss, that, God, where are you in my hour of need? I can't see you. I can't feel you. Where are you? There is a sort of felt atheism there. And Jesus models it. In his book, Peter Rollins, who is an author who I have a very mixed relationship with, his books are really thought-provoking, but not altogether that helpful, so read at your own caution. But in this particular area, super helpful. Loved what he had to say on this, so I'm very happy to read it to you. And he says this: in order for us Christians, people who believe in the message of Jesus and in his life and we try and follow him, for us to participate in the crucifixion, we must openly experience doubt, unknowing, and a deep mystery, and see these as part of Christian faith and important in our ongoing development of a healthy and properly Christian spirituality. Who here wants to be more like Jesus? Cool. I'd like to think that even actually people who don't think he was a historical figure, people who don't even believe in him, most people would agree, yeah, I want to be more like Jesus. And Jesus suffered greatly to the point of the cross, and at one point experienced a felt atheism, a darkness that was almost overwhelming. And so we can see in other people a sort of wisdom and experience that comes from suffering. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone who's really been through something and you're like, there is wisdom here, there is some sort of understanding, a way of seeing how the world works. I've been talking a lot with Joe Spears recently about his struggles with health and how that's really affected him. If you've not spoken to him about it, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, go and ask him how he's doing and how he's feeling and how his faith is doing. I've never been more inspired about someone's relationship with Jesus recently than talking to Joe. In his pain and in his suffering, he has drawn closer to God in a very unique way. And I think that there is something of Jesus in his suffering and his approach to being honest with God about pain. Why is this happening? God, what's going on? And in that, he has come closer to him. So firstly, when we think about Christian atheism, Jesus is our model. Secondly, pain, your pain, is not meaningless. So I want you to repeat after me this phrase: my pain is not meaningless. My pain is not meaningless. Christianity, unlike any other world faith or system or ability to process ideas and problems, is uniquely able to assist us in our suffering. It's one of the reasons that why Christianity exploded at the time when it did, when Christians were being persecuted, because Christianity was able to make sense of, to add meaning to bring goodness out of suffering. And I'm not talking about that bumper sticker, Jeremiah 29:11, when you rip a Bible verse out of context and stick it on like a first aid kit and just say, there you go, feel better, that you'll be fine. I'm not talking about that. I mean that deep knowing that God is with you in something and that he's going to work it for good, despite the fact that it makes no sense. Brennan Manning, in his book, The Signature of Jesus, arguably my favorite book of all time, he says this. And he's referring to this idea of the dark night of the soul, which is a phrase that is used to summarize that deep sense of separation from God. And he says this: the theology of the dark night is simplicity itself. God strips us of natural delights, spiritual consolations, in order to enter more fully into our hearts. And Christianity is able, when everything feels like it's taken away from us, there is meaning in your pain and suffering because you are able to come closer to God. You are able to comfort others. You are able to make sense of what's going on. There is lots of growth that can happen in our pain. And that leads me to my final thing that I want to say, which is that the Christian atheist is someone who is open to engage with the world around them. The Christian atheist is someone who is able to engage with the world around them. As we turn away from the idea that God is going to protect us from any sort of pain, that it's always going to work out fine, and that no matter what happens, it'll all be good in the end. Once we turn away from that sort of religious, almost Sunday school idea, and embrace the God who stands with us in the middle of the fiery furnace, not delivering us from it always, but standing with us in that, as we look to Jesus, a man who understands our pain and suffering and went through that so that he could say, I know your pain. As we experience that, we then can look at a world filled with injustice and suffering and pain and say, we can stand with you. So when we see people who are hungry, when we see people who are fighting to beat poverty, when we see people who are being completely morally bankrupt and it is hurting people, we can stand in the gap and say, our God suffered too. We know pain. We acknowledge pain. And there is always hope. That God is with us in the middle of that he can work it through for good, that we can grow through pain, that we can become better people, and that we can see the world changed for good. In a way, as we lose our faith, that old idea that all things work out fine in the end and it all works out good as, nothing bad happens to us, as we say goodbye to that, we find real faith. As we say goodbye to this idea of God always, always protecting us, nothing bad will ever happen to you, and we step into the reality of what this world is really like. We step into the possibility of being able to love others truly and properly. And so that's my prayer for us today, that we would be people who can engage in a relationship with God where we are brutally honest about how we're feeling. And so actually what I'd like to do is to invite you to stand with me, and I'm going to lead us in a prayer of lament. So if that's okay, I'm going to ask you to stand. This is how we're going to wrap this up.